first of all, happy Halloween. I have this cool Hocus Pocus shirt that says, "In a world full of basic witches, be a Sanderson." So it's from my mom. I still get treats from my parents on Halloween. Anyways, so this has really nothing to do with Halloween in general. It just happens to be Halloween. I was thinking about a time when I went out with a group of friends and I was at a bar, and like my friends were like to the right of me in their own little bubble talking about things that I wasn't really included in. It didn't mean anything, it wasn't a big deal, it was kind of their own inside thing, and I was letting them do their thing and just kind of enjoying the scenery. But there was a guy next to me who was just like on his phone, and he seemed to be by himself, so I was just like, you know, maybe he's bored and wants to have a conversation. So I just kind of like peeked on the phone, made sure he wasn't doing anything weird, and was like, okay, he's just watching random YouTube videos, so whatever. So I asked him, you know, if he was enjoying what he's watching, blah blah blah. I don't particularly remember what it was that he was watching, but I know we talked about that for a second. But I learned that he was a pilot, he was in town, his daughter was like interviewing for something. I want to say the University of Michigan. I was in Michigan at the time, so he had flown his daughter himself out there for that, so he was just kind of killing time while she did her interview, blah blah blah. We talked about, you know, what he did as a pilot, and you know, if he liked flying private versus like commercial, blah blah blah, those kinds of things. But what somehow came up, and I tend to avoid like the big ones like politics, religion, etc. However, I tend to draw those kinds of conversations, I feel like, to me, because I'm a relatively open-minded person. So he started talking about how he didn't want, or maybe there was something at the time where like a transgender person can become a pilot. I don't know how or why, if that would ever be something that wouldn't be something that could happen, but he was talking about how transgender people could fly, and that made him uncomfortable. And you know, like my lizard brain was just like, oh cool, so we're not really gonna have much in common from this point forward. But I try to be respectful of other people's opinions and felt like maybe this is a moment where maybe we could dig deeper. So I was very honest and I said, okay. I was like, well, I disagree. I feel like this may be where we diverge paths. However, I'm curious as to why somebody who's transgender would make you uncomfortable flying a plane. I was like, I don't see how that would impact you in any way, you know. And he brought up something that was unexpected to me, and he was just like, well, I don't feel like they're mentally stable. And I was like, whoa. Okay. Do you disagree with somebody who wants to be transgender? Like, what's, you know, what do you mean? Please explain. Because again, like, that was triggering for me. It's like, what do you mean mentally unstable? Like, it is what it is, you know? And he said, studies show that people who are transgender tend to have higher suicide rates or higher levels of depression, things like that. Which, that to me, in the point of the conversation, was a moment for learning. It was like, okay, what you're saying might be logical, so let me kind of dig into that. So I said, all right. I was like, so does it make you uncomfortable that they're depressed, like that they commit suicide? He's like, well, I don't want anybody to use my plane, not his plane, that's my words, anybody to use a plane in order to commit suicide. And I was like, well, it's valid, you know, I guess if I were a pilot, like, that would make sense. But I said, I understand where you're coming from, and you're not wrong. Like, he is not wrong. people who are transgender do have these issues, but they have these issues because they're in a body that they weren't meant to be in. So yeah, that's gonna cause some mental issues. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying, you know, if you have 2 arms and you lose one, yeah, you're gonna have to start. Sorry, this is my animal making noises and who may make an appearance while I chat, but I will continue on. So, like I said, if you lose an arm or something, you're gonna have some mental issues. Like, it's something that you have to likely overcome, you know? But there's nothing wrong with that. And at the end of it, he was just like, someone in that mental state, I really wouldn't want handling a plane, which I basically said in various forms, so I apologize for repeating myself. I just lost track. And I said, okay, but what about somebody who's going through a bad breakup? What about somebody who just lost their spouse? What about somebody who's going through an everyday trauma that also causes depression and also causes or is a cause for higher cases of suicide? And he looked at me and was like, I don't particularly want those people flying planes either. So I was like, all right, fair point, but how can you tell the difference? And he's like, you know, you're right, I don't. And in a nutshell, he basically agreed that, like, he was being biased for a logical reason, because in my head, and there was like more to our conversation that kind of gelled this together, that no, he would prefer that somebody who's going through a breakup or somebody who is feeling suicidal to not be flying a plane. And that makes sense to me. However, we all kind of do these things every day, and I hope that people who are feeling this way have the wherewithal or have the support, or hopefully we can provide the support if we know that somebody's going through something, in order to make them feel like they can accomplish the things that they set out to do. So if somebody is a pilot that happens to be transgender, you know, we can compartmentalize. Like, yes, every day is hard. Maybe flying that plane is the best part of their day, and the way that they can meet new people and maybe meet even more like-minded people in that scenario. And in the same thing, you know, maybe the pilot that's going through the breakup that is feeling suicidal, you know, has an overnight in a new city and meets the next love of their life. So while I was inclined to kind of just cut off the conversation when he said that, I felt like we got to a deeper level of understanding, and he came around and was just like, I guess I don't really have a problem with necessarily the transgender population, and I just prefer that people are taking care of themselves mentally. But he also said that he never thought about it in the way that I did, where I even said to him something. I said, okay, well, maybe somebody who's transgender, somebody who is transgender loves having that part of their day in which they're flying the plane. And he was like, that's valid. And I was like, but unfortunately, you don't get to know, I don't get to know, but we hope for the best, and we hope that people take care of themselves. And again, we hope that everybody's providing support. And I even said to him, like, you can be somebody that can support somebody who's going through something. And it was a good conversation. I feel like there was more political stuff that we kind of talked about that I was like, we disagree, but also I hear you, and the perspective that you're coming from is not one with malintent. And I think at the end of the day, for a lot of, especially what's going on right now, like understanding where somebody's coming from and helping them to either realize that, yeah, your point is valid, but also look at it from this point of view, instead of saying, how can you say that? You're wrong. Because immediately when you say somebody's wrong, they're going to shut down. I mean, even when someone's just condescending to me, I don't hear them as well as I do. Somebody's like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. This is how I feel. And maybe how they feel is the complete opposite of how I feel. But it gives us a moment to understand where each other are coming from. And sometimes my mind can be changed on certain things. It's like, oh, that's very valid. And I didn't consider just a small aspect sometimes of something that can completely change your view. I think with this gentleman in particular, correlating somebody that's going through a divorce or whatever, because probably at the end of the day, I don't know, he's a pilot, he's by himself, he didn't really say anything about his wife or whatever, maybe he went through something and maybe he was depressed and he never really thought about it the same way. Sure, studies show that people who are transgender have these issues, but so do all these other people who have other issues. I mean, it is what it is. And that was just a really small piece of the puzzle that I'm sure other people, maybe if they have the time or the patience to get to, they would have said something for him to think about it, but a lot of people probably just shut down. I had a conversation recently with a friend. I really don't remember what it's about in this moment, but it was a controversial subject, and I said to her, I want to know your opinion because I feel like that you and I will disagree, but I also feel like you can explain to me in a great way why you feel the way you feel, and that might help me, either come around or just have a better understanding. And I was right. She started talking about it, and I was like, fair point. Yep, I didn't think about it from that perspective. I mean, small shifts, you guys. Small shifts can go a long way. And maybe, okay, I'm sitting at a bar, I'm trying to entertain myself. You're a new person, and I like to talk to new people because I think it's fascinating that there can be 20 people at a bar, and that's 20 different life stories, different events, different extended family. Like, I just think about things in terms of like everybody's living their own unique life, and it's fascinating when we all get together, and a lot of the times we don't even communicate with each other. So I try to communicate with people that seem to be open to it when and where I can. But I talked to this gentleman for all of 15 minutes, but I feel like maybe I made a little bit of a life change for him, and maybe he's still like, I still don't like it, but maybe he's more understanding of it, and maybe that understanding will get him to talk to more people, and it could come around. Maybe it won't, I don't know, but I tried to do what I could, and I try to do other things that I can when and where I can. Also, since I am somebody who can not necessarily just like change my whole opinion about something, but come to better understandings about things when people bring up these small perspective changes, I hope more people do that. Like, so again, this guy with 15 minutes, maybe I didn't change his whole political view, but I changed his perspective on something on a smaller level, and that can grow into something larger along the way. And just how my friend said to me about the situation, which I'm remembering what it was, but that's a whole topic for another video that I won't go into. I mean, it really helped me to have a greater understanding of the situation at hand, and that can help me teach somebody else who's feeling the same way I do about something, instead of me being like, I know, like, I think it's ridiculous and I have an issue with that too. I can say, I had an issue with that at first, but then somebody said something to me that made me realize, like, oh, my issue is maybe either a little bit deeper than that, not on a personal level, and or again, just a perspective shift where you're like, that's true, what I'm feeling is true, but how somebody else is feeling is true too. And there's like this happy in between here where you're like, it can't all be this way. So again, I have a way of talking in a sense of vagueness that I don't intend to do, because in my head I know exactly what I'm talking about, but at the end of the day, all I'm saying is talk to anyone you can who's willing to listen, and even if you disagree completely, maybe we can all make small changes with each other in order to just make the world a little bit of a better place. That's all. Be well and stay well.